Join us this April 2nd and 3rd for the Worship Audiovisual Experience Spring 2024 Conference and Expo, happening in conjunction with the Cavlo event. Wave and Cavlo are bringing more than 50 leading manufacturers and service providers to the Gaylord Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee, showcasing the latest technologies available for your church. Wave will be providing conference education to take your production and worship to the next level by learning lighting, sound, and video techniques, as well as leadership and advanced technologies like AI usage.
The conference is very affordable at just $119, includes all of the sessions, recordings, and special events as part of the Wave and Cavlo experience.
The Expo Pass is always free for everybody, so make sure to bring your entire team to see all that the exhibitors have to offer. Register at wave-event.co. That's wave-event.co today.
With Sermon Shots church-specific AI, sermon highlights don't go unnoticed. Easily transform your sermons into 10-plus bite-sized clips, ready for social media. It doesn't stop there. Refine each clip by adding or removing video sections, give them your unique touch with colors, fonts, design edits, and create the goosebump moment with background music. Elevate your message and reach hearts locally and globally. Start today by going to sermonshots.com. From front of house to center stage, for over 25 years, Earthworks microphones have sculpted the sounds of your favorite concerts, venues, and performances. Earthworks Audio is a sponsor of the Tech Arts Podcast. We are so happy to have them on board and excited to promote the new Earthworks SR117 vocal mic and capsules. To find out more about Earthworks Audio or to get your hands on this mic, go to earthworksaudio.com. That's earthworksaudio.com. Capturing emotion with sound. earthworksaudio.com. From sold-out stadiums to intimate live performance venues, sound engineers agree on one thing for the best digital mixing consoles for live sound. The only name that matters is Digico. As the recognized worldwide standard for live audio mixing, Digico consoles are renowned for their industry-leading sound quality and ease of use. Whether your application is in a church, broadcast, theater, corporate, sports, or installed sound, Digico offers compact and affordable products. From the S21 all the way up to the pioneering power of the Quantum 852, Digico delivers the workflow, the feature set, and the absolute reliability that the world's biggest tours and programs have come to rely upon. If you're looking for a sound console, look to Digico for your answer. For more information on Digico, go to digico.biz. That's digico.biz.
This is the Tech Arts Podcast, where we talk about tech, leadership, and all things that concern church audio, video, and lighting.
Welcome to the Tech Arts Podcast and the Earthworks Audio Studios. My name is DL. So glad to have you along for the ride. Today we're talking to the Digico boys, Matt Larson and Ryan Shelton, about setting up volunteers for success. Of course, we'll jump into some Digico discussions as well, but if you're a tech director, volunteer, pastor, or have anything to do with tech in your church, you're going to gain some valuable insights from this podcast. We talk about the best way to set up your console, how to find training opportunities when you're a volunteer, plus Matt will have us rolling on the floor with a Prince tour story. But right now, let's talk our church tech tip. Today's church tech tip is the Wave Conference. Joining us to explain more about this conference is Ron Procopio and Mike Brown-Sestero. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey, David.
All right, I've heard a rumor that Wave is joining forces with Cavlo. Ron, can you tell us what's going on?
This is true. We're actually very excited to do this. Coming out of our last event in Louisville, Mike at Cavlo reached out to us about the possibility of two events, both with the same heart, same ideas, coming together and making more opportunities for each other. And it was just too good of an offer for us to not work together and create this this joint effort.
That's awesome. So, Mike, it's great to meet you. I hear you run Cavlo. Tell us more about this event and how Wave is helping your mission.
So I created Cavlo back in 2020 when we were all sitting at home, for just 6 weeks, waiting for the curve to flatten. And I got tired of putting in my living room. And 2020 was the year where all of the audio, video, and lighting trade shows for commercial professional products happened to be in Vegas. And even the trade shows that aren't necessarily about AV, but have a good AV presence, some of them were also in Vegas. The only shows that weren't in Vegas that year were NAMM, of course, always Anaheim, and USITT, which rarely, I don't know if it's ever come to Vegas. But of course, all those shows, 13 of them in total, ended up canceling or postponing into 2021. And I thought, you know what, I know lots of manufacturers. I've been an integrator, an audio-video integrator by trade now for over 20 years. I know lots of manufacturers. I know lots of end users and other integrators. I can, rent a ballroom and put some people in a room. And so we did, and we originally were going to go in September of 2020. That became November. That became February of 2021. Finally, in May of 2021, the very first Cavlo debuted right here at this hotel that I happen to be in today doing another project, the Orleans Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. I reached out to Ron regarding Wave because, listen, firsthand, I know how hard it is to do a regional event. It is a lot of work. You're not going to, retire, stinking rich off of doing regional AV shows. So you really have to do it because you're passionate about it and you enjoy it, right? And I really love doing the Cavlos. And so I reached out to Ron after his St. Louis show and I said, hey, listen, instead of both of us kind of dancing around each other and trying to avoid each other on the schedule, because most manufacturers are only going to do one regional show per quarter or so, maybe two. But instead of us beating our heads against the wall or against each other, trying to fight for good dates and find good locations, maybe we can work together. Let's try it out, once or twice. Start with Nashville. If it goes well, maybe we do another one and see if that works, right? And I can tell from talking to Ron that his passion is the conference, right? He loves the learning sessions. He loves helping people grow their ministry through the use of technology, or have their ministry at least be more impactful through the use of technology. And I like the trade show aspect. We do discussion panels. We do educational sessions as part of Cavlo, but I love the trade show part of it. I love the booths. I love building the floor. The floor gets torn down. I love the magic of it, right? You show up one day, nothing's there. 5 hours later, there's a trade show, So that's where I think Ron and I can really work together and help each other out, frankly.
So, Ron, what can people expect this year at Wave?
Yeah, it's as Mike mentioned, what we're really going to benefit from with Cavlo is having a more robust expo floor. We've had traditionally somewhere between 25 and 35 exhibitors, where when Mike and I are both working on this, we expect that we can bump that up a bit and show more technologies to people. The conference part that we've been working on is also going to have some really cool stuff. We're going to have some your traditional lighting design sessions and your audio design, but we're incorporating some leadership sessions. We've got an AI session where to begin with AI in your church. So we're really trying to have a rounded conference program. Everybody from the team can come and learn something at the conference and not feel that it's dominated by one topic or another. There's something for everybody.
And Mike, I see on your website here that you get to see the gear and touch the gear. You mentioned just a second ago that you really got into the trade show piece of it. And even the pictures I see here are amazing. It looks like an awesome trade show environment. Who are some of the manufacturers that are coming to this event?
So as of this morning, confirmed. Let's see. I'm drawing a mental picture of the trade show of the floor plan, which, by the way, is available on the website. Anybody can download it. We update it every 2 or 3 days or so. If you go to cavlo.tech/exhibit, scroll down, you'll see the floor plan. You'll see who'll be there. But we've got Meyer Sound, boyz Audio, Planar, AMX, JBL, Analog Way, Mainlight, Mega, Sweetwater, Media Technologies out of Canada, Sound Control Technologies, I'm probably missing a few in there, but that gives you a good idea. Oh, Aurora Multimedia. That gives you a good cross section. I try in particular, and I'm sure Ron would agree with me that he tries also, and therefore together we both be trying to have a good mix of not just audio, video, and lighting manufacturers, but also knowing that there's different segments to those, right? You have the kind of audio that you would use for building video conference rooms and, in a corporate environment versus the kind of, live audio, production audio, and same thing for video or lighting. And I try and have a nice mix of all that. We try and have networking companies there. Zyxel, a company that makes network switches, routers, that sort of stuff. They'll be there. Long-time exhibitors. As a matter of fact, I think they've exhibited at every single Cavlo. So it doesn't really matter what segment or what market you come from. If you're in commercial AV, there'll be something there for you.
And where's this happening at, Ron?
Yeah, we're going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to be at the Gaylord Opryland.
Ooh, Nashville, Tennessee. Now I know why I'm coming to this event. Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
At the Gaylord. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there.
Yeah, it's a great property. Amazing barbecue. If you haven't been, we'll keep you entertained. There's food. There's all kinds.
It's not as good as Texas barbecue out here in Dallas. But
I'm right with you. You will notice what color this shirt is. And my company colors happen to be the same colors as the greatest university on earth.
And what university would that be? You might as well give your shout out. Go for it.
That would be the University of Texas. Hook 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Texas barbecue is recognized as the world's best. What Ron meant to say was that the barbecue in Tennessee is a close second, a very close second.
Well, the Gaylord, all the amenities there, it sounds like a really fun, inviting environment for a trade show, for a conference with speakers.
It totally is. And you know what it reminds me of? And I'm going to date myself here because a lot of your viewers probably have never been to a Holiday Inn Holidome. But back in the 60s and 70s, Holiday Inn had these chain of hotels that had big geodesic domes made out of glass in the middle. And you would walk through the dome to get from, say the pool area to the hotel rooms, or from the rooms to the restaurant area, right? The lobby and check-in was right usually in the dome there. But a lot of them also had in the dome section, they'd have a little 9-hole putt-putt, course, right? Set up, or they'd have an arcade, an open air arcade, right? The Gaylord, and apologies to the Gaylord people, because obviously a Gaylord is several steps up from a Holiday Inn.
Yeah, I was about to say they're gonna be like, what?
It reminds me of that though, because you can walk this entire property, indoors. They have this huge atrium in the middle that has open air restaurants, tropical plants. They have koi ponds and bridges going over stuff. And that's how you get to and from, say the hotel rooms to the convention center to the restaurant section. It's this big open area. Obviously right now it's snowing in Nashville or in Tennessee, but generally speaking, the weather in Tennessee is pretty temperate. If it were in Chicago, this Gaylord would be phenomenal. It'd be one of those places you check in and you'd never have to walk outside until you checked out. And you could eat at 10 different restaurants without ever leaving the property. I love the Gaylord. It's a beautiful property.
Yeah. Plus Nashville has a great, downtown area. The Gaylord, all encompassing. You can pretty much do whatever you want right inside the Gaylord. It's a beautiful complex. It's an awesome place to hold this trade show and conference.
Yeah, we love it for all those reasons. And downtown is, I think, about a 15-minute drive away. So super easy to get around. We love Nashville. This will be our second time in Nashville, actually. We were there spring of 2022 as well.
Well, if you guys want to take your tech skills to another level, meet others like you, put your hands on the gear, and experience amazing speakers, training, and education, you don't want to miss out on the WAVE conference at the Cavlo event. For more information or to secure your tickets, please go to wave-event.co. That's wave-event.co. You can also go to cavlo.tech. That's CAVLO.tech. Reap the benefits of the Cavlo Trade Show and the WAVE Conference. Book your tickets today by going to wave-event.co or cavlo.tech. Thank you guys for coming on and telling us more about these amazing events.
My pleasure.
Thank you, David.
Coming up in just a few minutes is our conversation with the Digico boys, Matt Larson and Ryan Shelton. We're going to be talking about setting up volunteers for success, talking ideas and best practices for training, answering questions like, what's the biggest mistake they have seen on an audio console? Hey, that answer will help you. Hint, it has something to do with digital screens. Plus, Matt has a hilarious story that happened when he was on tour with Prince. All that and more after these messages from our sponsors. Hang on.
Join us this April 2nd and 3rd for the Worship Audio-Visual Experience Spring 2024 Conference and Expo, happening in conjunction with the Kavlo event. Wave and Kavlo are bringing more than 50 leading manufacturers and service providers to the Gaylord Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee, showcasing the latest technologies available for your church. Wave will be providing conference education to take your production and worship to the next level by learning lighting, sound, and video techniques, as well as leadership and advanced technologies like AI usage.
The conference is very affordable at just $119, includes all of the sessions, recordings, and special events as part of the Wave and Kavlo experience.
The Expo Pass is always free for everybody, so make sure to bring your entire team to see all that the exhibitors have to offer. Register at wave-event.co. That's wave-event.co today.
With Sermon Shots church-specific AI, sermon highlights don't go unnoticed. Easily transform your sermons into 10-plus bite-sized clips, ready for social media. It doesn't stop there. Refine each clip by adding or removing video sections, give them your unique touch with colors, fonts, design edits, and create the goosebump moment with background music. Elevate your message and reach hearts locally and globally. Start today by going to sermonshots.com. From front of house to center stage, for over 25 years, Earthworks microphones have sculpted the sounds of your favorite concerts, venues, and performances. Earthworks Audio is a sponsor of the Tech Arts Podcast. We are so happy to have them on board and excited to promote the new Earthworks SR117 vocal mic and capsules. Here's a testimony about this mic from a high-level engineer who has worked with a lot of amazing artists.
I'm Matt Lowe. I'm an audio engineer. I've worked in some of the biggest churches in America and with some of the biggest named artists in the world. This microphone is gonna blow the industry away. Every church in America needs this microphone. Every tour writer needs this microphone. And every audio engineer should hear this microphone through their PA. It will amaze you. And I can't speak more highly about this microphone.
To find out more about Earthworks Audio or to get your hands on this mic, go to earthworksaudio.com. That's earthworksaudio.com. Capturing emotion with sound. earthworksaudio.com. From sold-out stadiums to intimate live performance venues, sound engineers agree on one thing for the best digital mixing consoles for live sound. The only name that matters is Digico. As the recognized worldwide standard for live audio mixing, Digico consoles are renowned for their industry-leading sound quality and ease of use. Whether your application is in a church, broadcast, theater, corporate, sports, or installed sound, Digico offers compact and affordable products. From the S21 all the way up to the pioneering power of the Quantum 852, Digico delivers the workflow, the feature set, and the absolute reliability that the world's biggest tours and programs have come to rely upon. If you're looking for a sound console, look to Digico for your answer. For more information on Digico, go to digico.biz. That's digico.biz.
What's MXU? We get asked that all the time. MXU is the platform for churches to recruit, train, and retain their volunteer teams. It starts with our vast content library with discipline-specific training videos. You can assign videos to team members, upload your own videos, and you can even organize them into courses for a more guided approach. You can keep track of a volunteer's watch progress and check in when they might be falling behind. And with groups, you can keep track of multiple teams and assign roles to specific users to give them the ability to manage your volunteer team. It doesn't matter if you're a team of 5 or 50, MXU will help you care for and stay on top of training for each volunteer. This is MXU, used to help churches recruit, train, and retain their volunteer teams. Join the community and start using MXU for free today.
Our main sponsor is Digital Great Commission Ministries. Whether you need help building a team, finding the right gear, or just better understanding the church tech world, DGCM is here for you. Because they are a 501c3 donor-sponsored organization, they come to your church for free and do an assessment of your tech, visitor engagement, and online streaming. Plus, we give away free gear. Be sure to go to audiovideolighting.com and register your email today. This will sign you up for all of the free giveaways and give you first access to everything we offer for free. If you want free resources, training, or consulting, contact Digital Great Commission Ministries today by going to audiovideolighting.com. That's audiovideolighting.com. Welcome back to the Tech Arts Podcast. Today we're talking about setting up volunteers for success with professional audio systems. To help us with this chat, we have in the virtual studio today, courtesy of Digico, Matt Larson and Ryan Shelton. Welcome back, guys.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Hello, David.
Matt, Ryan, before we jump into some of our questions, tell us a little bit about your background. Matt, let's start with you.
I just kind of started in the industry really young, and I think it kind of gave you the groundworks of understanding what everybody else that's actually listening to this podcast has gone through. And it's really just trying to learn as I could, working for bands. When I started in 7th grade, I think was the first band I started working with, and doing lighting and then audio, and then working in a high school stage. Went to school for electronics, worked for a lot of bands. Minnesota has a lot of big bands in the 80s, and where they made a lot of revenue just playing clubs. So there was a lot of work. And then some really good sound companies. Back in the 80s, you kind of had these pockets of these little regional sound companies, but we had to build everything. You couldn't just get online and order your power distribution or, all your panels. Everything was custom built. So it kind of gave me the chops from the front end of learning all that and just worked with a lot of shops. And I think what probably got me further quicker was just investing the time. We go to classes nowadays. We can watch stuff online. We can go to like a Digico master's class or something, but it's not until you actually then go back and apply it, what you've learned, are you going to be successful? So I think that's one thing I love doing it. So I just kept digging and asking questions, and you always learn every day. We still learn things.
Well, were you in 7th or 8th grade when you started working for Prince?
No, I was a little bit older.
You're a little bit older?
About 19 and a half.
Yeah. I saw that on your bio, and when you said, hey, I started when I was 7th or 8th grade, I thought, oh, that's awful young to be working for Prince.
Yeah, I had to get some chops first before I got that job.
Yeah, I had to build up to it. So, Ryan, what's your background? Where do you... Well, this is a funny question. Where do you come from?
So Memphis, Tennessee is where I grew up.
Memphis?
Yep. So I'm pretty good with a gun. The other thing is I grew up at a mega church, a lot of great friends, a lot of great times there. And, one of the first rooms I had experience mixing in, besides the youth room, was, 7,000 seat room, 200 person choir, 60 person orchestra, full band, all that kind of stuff. And there was just a ton to learn. But I started off when I was about 11 years old. I have a couple of really good friends who are still friends, still in the industry in various ways, and we all just started volunteering. We were those nerdy kids who were just coming up and asking questions, wanted to help, wrapping mic cables and, setting up mic stands and doing all that. I was also a musician, So I would usually bounce between playing in the orchestra or doing audio in some form or fashion. And yeah, I look back on it, and it was just so blessed to have people who knew what they were doing guide me along the way. So a lot of stuff for me is just instinctive because I was able to have somebody who was a mentor who took the time, poured it into me, answered all my dumb questions, and, let us get hands-on as well. And kind of to Matt's point, back when I started this as well, we were all analog. There was no virtual sound check. There was none of this. So, you didn't go touch the compressor for the pastor, there was, that was not my role to ever be able to do. So, it took a long time, a lot longer than, with a lot of the tools we have available now for people is, to learn how compressors worked. What's a threshold? What's a ratio? What's a knee? How do those affect audio? And a lot of that, as previously mentioned, was learned back up in the youth room, where I like to say I learned how to create feedback, and I got really good at it. Also learned how to not create it. So,
yeah, I grew up in the same world, Ryan. I mean, there's the kids today are so blessed, with MXU and YouTube and some of the things that they can go out and just kind of grab the knowledge. Almost too blessed. I think some of the hard knocks of analog consoles have helped me get my mic placement correct and not lean on plugins and things of that nature to fix this or that or whatever's going on with the product. But Matt, you got to tell me, you have to have a funny story about touring with Prince or something. You got a funny story to tell us?
Well, let's see. There's a couple probably, but I don't know which one I should say.
Well, let me say this. You have a funny, appropriate story?
I got one. I don't remember if I did this on a podcast years ago, but this was kind of funny because I was young. I was with them, right after Purple Rain, and the last thing we did was Diamonds and Pearls album. So I was with them for about 7 years. But when I was with them, I was just the new kid. And we were playing a big venue, and I really took care of him, took care of all the wireless stuff, and was the crew chief at the time. And he came running by me during the encore, and I hope this is okay, but he runs by and he screams at me, "Larson, I need a Mexican." And I'm, pretty naive, still new. I didn't know what to do, and I kind of felt like Caddyshack, where the guy's like bouncing back and forth, trying to find out, okay, where am I going to find this? So I went backstage, we have a quick change place underneath the drum riser, saw the drum tech and asked him, I said, I don't know what to do. He just ran by me and said he needs a Mexican. And he's like, well, Garcia's Mexican. He was one of our guitar techs on stage, right? Like, I don't know. He would have just said Garcia, I thought. And then Helen, who's head of wardrobe, she was kind of like my mom because I was really young. And I see her and I said, hey, I don't know what to do. Prince just ran by me, said he needs a Mexican, but I don't know. It was really loud, encore time, right? So she goes into the quick change room, comes back out. She's, Matt, he said he needs oxygen. And I'm thinking, well, can't you pronunciate as you're running by me? Come on. I can't hear. It's all this loud noise. So that was...
I can imagine you like, here's Garcia.
Yes.
I was like, no, what are you talking about? So you needed oxygen?
Yeah.
Yeah, just because, you're going full out, so it's like a football player, he's dancing, playing, screaming, running. And so artists will have oxygen in the dressing rooms just to take a couple good hits and then get back out quicker, basically is what it allows them to do. No different than a football player. Baseball players don't know what that is. But
yeah. Yeah, it's called sitting on the bench for them. Yep. But so Ryan, hard to top that, but do you have any church stories you can throw at me?
Yeah, I did got a couple. So growing up in a mega church was pretty fun because, the scale of things just tends to be bigger and what you get to deal with. We had Christmas and Easter productions we did every year, full out, like stage extension, the orchestra would get beefed up. We would usually track the choir, have them live in the choir room. And we had, for Christmas, we did this massive, I think it was like 40-foot tall steel Christmas tree. We put 100 kids in, you'd mic that up, do that type of production. Inevitably, at any point during these productions, you would also need dry ice, right? So you would need lots and lots of dry ice if you were trying to create the mood or the effect or whatever. So use your imagination that after these large productions, that there would be just pallets of dry ice left over, and or just, smaller quantities, depending. And, it's just going to go to waste, right? So you have a bunch of 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who discovered that if you put dry ice inside of an empty 2-liter bottle, and then you filled it with warm water, and then you screwed on the lid and you just waited, then it made a really massive explosion. And, nothing to show for it because, other than a cap flying off. So we would go outside after doing loadout or something like this. It's 12 or 1 in the morning. And we would just go out onto one of the patios and we would just blow up probably 10 or 20 of these things. And then the funny part was all the security guards who are also there. There's usually 1 or 2 on patrol at night. We'd set off a couple and then they would, come by in their truck, and then wait 10 more minutes and then set off another couple, and go through that. And it was a blast. Literally.
And they had no idea you guys were doing it?
Correct. No ideas. We didn't have tons of cameras and all that stuff at that point in time. And, so you could get away with stuff like that without getting your mom called.
It must be a universal church thing because me and a buddy of mine did the same exact thing. Except we put it in the baptismal.
Oh.
And we did it.
David.
I didn't think about that.
We did it while people were still in the building. And of course, we'd not done it before, so we weren't thinking. We knew it would explode, but we put it in the baptismal. I think my buddy was up on the genie lift when it went off. And everybody jumped and fell. People hit the floor. They were drop, roll. You know what I mean?
Yep. You can't do that these days.
He about fell out of his genie lift. He was laying. I looked up. He was just laying in the single man genie lift, laughing so hard. I was like, "Bud, you're gonna fall." It was hilarious to watch people. And this was back in the day. At least the church I was working at. I guess some churches still do this, but they had robes. The choir had robes.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's just really funny to watch people in robes run out of the choir loft like the whole world is falling down around them.
So we don't recommend this to anybody.
None of this.
No. Don't ever do this ever.
Yep.
Especially in 2024.
That is true. Yep.
Don't do what David did.
Yeah. Did I say it was me? I said it was a buddy of mine.
Oh.
Yeah, well, so obviously for training and things of that nature, we don't need to train them on anybody on dry ice.
No.
Everybody understands dry ice. Mm-hmm. But Matt, training is important. So, we want to train our volunteers. They can get overwhelmed pretty easily unless they're blowing things up with dry ice. But how do we avoid that? How do we avoid our volunteers getting overwhelmed?
I think the thing is one, if you're the mentor teaching them, or if you're just coming into a church that really doesn't have a very good technical staff, it's really just see what you have available and just keep things really, really simple. Ryan brought up, an analog desk. If for some reason you have an analog desk, just kind of understanding how the analog flow works, or even to see some videos, if you can understand the signal flow of analog, I think that gets you really far ahead. When you work for a big mega church, the great thing about that is you've got a lot of the technology. But sometimes with that, it's so advanced that sometimes it scares you, all these beautiful cameras and these switchers and stuff. But also sometimes the better the equipment gets, the easier it can also be to operate. But as an audio engineer, a lot of times what it is people start using plugins and they got all these mics everywhere. It's like, you know what? Every once in a while, it's kind of nice just to go back to flat, get rid of some plugins, go through a sound check, listen, go check your mics out. Have your mics been around for 10 years? Have they been dropped a ton of times? Does the mic sound good all by itself? And that's kind of like the advantage of doing a virtual sound check is I would say that if I had to pick one tool next to the high pass filter, virtual sound check is probably the best tool you could use as a volunteer because it allows you to come in on your own time. But again, we're having to invest our own time to come in all by myself with the computer playing the tracks back with headphones because maybe I don't want to energize the whole PA because the kids are still in class, down the hall. I got to keep it kind of quiet during the weekdays. But at least I could actually solo channels, adjust EQ, adjust dynamics, play with some plugins, and actually hear the end result. I could go into SIP, solo in place. We like to call it solo in PA or how to get fired.
That's
and
true.
what solo in place does is it allows you to, if you turn that mode on, if you solo a particular channel, it basically bypasses all the other channels or mutes those other channels in the PA. So you could really hear that end result as you're noodling around and learning stuff. Now, how do I get a volunteer to get this? One is just asking questions, simply watching videos, get into a training class. We've got, for Digico, we've got tons of master classes that we do. When we do installs, we do trainings, at every install we do. But also there's a lot of videos that we've done, and some of it's just the simple basics of audio. So if you just spend some time watching those YouTube videos with Digico, you can learn a lot. And then there's also with other manufacturers, because at the end of the day, audio is a really small industry. There's a lot of good videos from other manufacturers as well. So you can kind of capture different people's approaches, how they mix. I think over time with COVID also really there's a lot of good content from touring engineers that had some time, and they're kind of the race team, or people I say would perceive that they are the race team. The reality is there's some churches that actually have better systems and better mixes because they've got that consistency, and they're doing, instead of just a one show that they repeat 5 times, 7 times a week, they're doing a new show every 90 minutes. So they actually have to have better chops in the church.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said simple, like, bring it back to flat, but really keep it simple. And Ryan, you kind of grew up in that environment, brand new, standing behind a console, thrown into the mix. Do you agree? Keeping it simple kind of eliminates some of that being overwhelmed?
Absolutely. So, there's oftentimes as professionals, we try to create the best system possible, right? Absolute best boutique mic pre's, best cabling, best converters, best mixing system, best plug-in or analog outboard, and best PA system. And we should all strive for that. But there is a strong argument to be made for a streamlined system, right? The benefit that somebody has of a volunteer coming in and being able to figure out the system. Absolutely. Keep it simple. Keep it simple as possible. And invest into quality gear and keep the system simple.
All right, so let me ask you guys this. The biggest mistake you've seen on a mixing console, and how do you avoid it? So Ryan, you go first. I want to hear from both of you because I know you guys have been around a lot and probably seen some big ones, but what's the biggest mistake on the mixing console and how do you avoid it?
So I think one of the biggest issues we deal with nowadays is getting distracted by how something looks. And I always come back to this because on a digital console, we usually have big, beautiful screens that show us great graphics and lots of feedback. And as per mentioned, there's a lot of great resources where people can go watch a YouTube video, watch somebody in a studio EQ a vocal, and then they want it to look like that when they come to a console. And if, when I started, Dave, when you started, Matt, you had an encoder that was your gain for your mid-band EQ, and you were lucky if you had that. And then it was, somewhere between 0 and negative 15 or 0 and positive 15.
That's right, though. I always had a high-pass filter.
Yeah, you did. And obviously still the most important tool ever developed in audio. But, we didn't know what our EQs looked like, right? We had no clue what the EQ graph looked like. We didn't have one. So you just kept turning things until it sounded right. And I think we get into this modern world, we get distracted by our eyes. We get, especially when you're moving from one platform to another, right? Because not all manufacturers use the same logarithmic scale or the same kind of just graphical display as far as spacing goes and all that. So a lot of people will just, turn it till it looks right and then wonder what's wrong. And there's extra minutes or seconds that go into that process. Years and years ago, I heard a story of a guy out of Texas. And when he got new engineers and he was training them up, they had digital consoles, but he would let them patch everything, set up all their settings. And then if it was like some other brand where you have an external monitor, he'd unplug it. If it was a Digico, then he would just cover up the screen on the Digico with cardstock, like black cardstock or something like that. And, we could take it off if there was an emergency or something like that, but he made him mix the show that way. And it's oh, how do you know if you're selected on the right channel? Well, did the guitar change when you changed the EQ? Did you hear it? and it's just kind of like gets our visuals out of the way and gets us back to using our ears. When I'm doing trainings, I always bring this up as well, because Digico has a really funny option, and I find it just truly hilarious that it gets rid of the decimal point on the display. It doesn't get rid of it on when you're actually adjusting your resolution, so you're never going to like hear it, but it just takes away the decimal point from you, the operator, seeing it. And you have to ask yourself, why do we have that option? Like, why is it necessary to take it out? And it's because the vast majority of audio people are OCD to some extent. And I would argue probably David, you, me, and definitely know Matt is in there as well, that we spent an inordinate amount of time trying to get something from negative 0.1 to 0, or from positive 0.2 to 0. And, having little things like that just get your visuals out of the way, get your eyes off, so now you can turn back on your ears, or better yet, never leave your ears. So you're just adjusting it till it sounds right. So yeah, I think visuals are probably one of the biggest mistakes people make right now, is just getting distracted by the way a plugin looks, getting distracted by the way an EQ looks, getting distracted by what it looks like versus what does it sound like.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I did an exercise with a volunteer where we threw a sheet over the console and wouldn't let him see anything except for the faders. Because he just kept his eyes down on the console the whole time and was missing mic cues and things like that. And so to me, the biggest mistake is the device or the screen just sucks the engineer in and they don't mix the show. They don't have their eyes up and they're mixing the show. I don't recommend doing that during a performance, but during the rehearsal, it worked out.
That's fantastic.
But what about you, Matt? What have you seen that you're kind of like, man, that's the biggest mistake?
Well, let me throw one more thing in with what Ryan said, is like, we've always joked we'd like an option so you could get rid of all the graphics and all the numbering. So it's to be a feature you could turn on or off. I think with that said, what we're trying to do is get the engineer to actually listen to stuff versus visually look at it. But also, I think we're all guilty of this. We kind of go to that kick drum, or we go to that snare. We kind of go to that frequency. We tighten up our cue. We sweep it. We kind of get stuck in the way we work all the time. When in reality, it's kind of nice just to go back off, or, on a Digico, on a channel, you could go to a channel that you've already got EQ'd. You can make a change to it, but then there's a buffer, so I could go back, so I could A/B listen to it, or I could actually make a preset of that and try different things. So I could have like 4 different styles of EQing on that instrument, and I could then just go back and forth and go, well, which one sounds better? Do I like this one, this one, this one, or this one? And I think when we get back to the basics, we're just kind of coming back to where we were earlier, is just because it looks right, it doesn't mean it's right. Am I really improving it? And sometimes it's pull down all the mics, start building your mix back up, because we have all these open mics. What's really happening with all these open mics? I think by us making certain that we don't get sucked into the screen, that we do what's most important is watch the artist, because we get a lot of visual cues of what's going on too. We want to make certain that we're muting things and I'm muting mics that we're not using, but you won't know that if you're not keeping an eye on the artist.
There's a drill I used to run because when I was mixing, I had a choir. They would come in. I'd have like 10 minutes with the choir to get a full choir, full band, full orchestra. Like, bam, I had to get it done. And nowadays I watch people spend 40 minutes on a kick drum, and I'm like, turn the knob till it sounds good and stop. I think the guy who started Waves said that. And so a drill I would also run with young volunteers is you have 1 minute to make this sound good, go. And, if you start getting too much into Waves, which is a great tool, should be used, I understand it, but you start getting too much into it, sometimes you can just get yourself upside down. So you have 1 minute, get it done quick. For me, the biggest mistake that I've seen on a console is an audio engineer spending so much time on something that at the end of the day, the audience is never going to appreciate.
Yeah.
And they don't get to the vocal, and they don't get to the actual mix because they spent so much time on a kick or a snare. Not that that's not important, but you've got to move on and you got to get the mix done, especially in the church world when they give you, 13 and a half minutes on Sunday morning at 7:45 to actually get a good check done.
And who's awake and singing fully at 7:45 in the morning anyway?
What's also interesting is as a newer volunteer, whatever, is, if you can during sound check, maybe somebody else is mixing, whether it be at sound check or during the service, is to go move around the actual venue. I want to hear, what does it sound like when I'm at the very front rows on the far right side of the house? What does that sound like versus the sweet spot where the PA is hearing? And it's kind of just to make certain that you're understanding what everybody's hearing. It's not just sitting at the desk all the time and listening to it or listening to your left and right mix on the way home. It's, are we helping? Do we have problems with our speaker system? Did something get turned down? Did something get turned off? Something broken? And really just make certain that all the seats are as best as possibly can. And I would say, this is my opinion, I would sacrifice the music more so I could hear the dialogue. That's probably the most important part when I'm trying to set up the system. The music is a side note. If I can't hear pastor properly, and you've got ages, young kids to old adults, some older men can't hear high mid ranges and whatever their problems are. So you want to make certain that the system is as best as it possibly can be there. You want to make certain, those little things are working. Your assistive listening, if you've got a crying room, if I've got an overflow room, how does it sound for them? And those are things, as a newer person, you can be giving good feedback. Not that you might not be an expert, but you can go sit in those seats and then go talk to the engineer who's actually mixing, say, hey, I was over in this other room and it's not loud enough, or it's too loud, or we hear the blaring of the TV from the other room going. Could we turn that down, during the service? Just those little things that we can make it a better experience for everybody.
And to kind of piggyback off that real quick, it's, as an engineer, some of the best advice I got when I started was, you're going to have a sound that you enjoy, that you think is a perfect mix, a volume level that you think is ideal. There's all those things that you perceive as being ideal for you. This is what I want to hear when I go to church. This is what I want to hear when I go to worship. But the advice I got was not mixing for me. It's mixing for the people in the room. And I would argue that every volunteer, whatever level of audio proficiency they have, they can probably paint the composite member of their church. Right? What that age is, how they dress, the type of music they listen to. And to kind of reinforce Matt's point, while we will spend ages on a kick drum and a snare drum and the plate reverb on that snare drum, right? And making sure all those elements are amazing. You might be at a church where that's very important. And you might be at a church where, once again, they just don't care. They want to hear the vocal. They want to sing along, and they need to hear the words with that. And so, just mix for your audience wherever you're at. And that's also, if you want to move into a touring or, commercial mixing role later on in your life, understanding that is critical. Being able to mix for your audience. Some of the best engineers we have in our industry can actually bounce between genres, can bounce between really any type of artist that they have, because if they're mixing an R&B act, they know it needs to sound a certain way. And if they're mixing a pop act, they know it needs to sound a certain way. And if you have the chops to understand that you're not mixing for yourself, but you're mixing for those that are in the room at that time.
Another thing to throw in there is just to get experience. Say I'm a newer audio engineer. I've been there for a year or so. What Ryan kind of brought up is I can actually call up pretty much any sound company in my region and go hit the owner up, not just an employee, just somehow get a hold of the owner, ask if you can come in and help for free. They're in the summertime, they're trying to do a bunch of shows to get stuff packed up. Then all of a sudden you might get a job here or there mixing live audio. You're also working with some guys that are maybe better than what the people are at your church are. So you learn from them. You can make some extra money. But you're also getting another set of opinions. So kind of like I might work at a specific church or volunteer at the specific church. But one thing I find that's what I love is the family of churches, even different denominations. They all pretty much get along. And a lot of people in each area kind of know who's at which church. They come over and listen to the room with the other guy, throw his mix up. So I would take advantage of that and just try to know other people. Don't just get stuck taking that 2-mile drive from your house to the church every 5 days. You should go visit some other places and see what they're doing. You should go see some live shows. Go to the orchestra hall. Go talk to that engineer. What does he do? Because that's the one thing even for me is always wondering how you could mic better the choir. What do you do with the symphony? When you get the Ryan on his cello there, where do I put the mic? Because I've only get to do it once a year, Christmas time. So you could pick up from those guys, and everybody in this industry loves to share things that they've learned over time.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed. Everybody in the secular industry especially loves to tell you the mistakes they've run into and how they have overcome them. A comment though that I hear mostly in the church world is I hear, hey, Digico isn't good for volunteers. And it drives me absolutely crazy because I feel like the Digico consoles are the most flexible consoles in terms of setup. And for me, if you have a flexible console for setup, you can set it up to work with your volunteers. But Ryan, how do you address that? I'm sure you've heard that before. Hey, yeah. Digico is absolutely don't get Digico because it's hard for the volunteers. How do you address that?
If you had a 3-console, 6-rack Dante, Opticore, Waves, redundant engines, and all that stuff, and you bought it all from a music store, and then you dump it on a volunteer who doesn't know what they're doing to ask them to get it set up. Is Digico complicated? Yes. In that scenario, the answer would be yes. So Digico, I feel like we tend to get that feedback from customers because there is so much scalability to the system, right? We can go from a very simple S21, S31 with a little Matty rack that anybody could set up and anybody could operate, all the way up to our flagship consoles. And they are designed to be able to do whatever our customers are asking them to do. So with a system like that, I would say, yeah, maybe that's not the best for a volunteer to set up. Now, after the system's set up, hopefully your integrator has done that for you. Hopefully you've had some sort of training being brought in. So whether that's factory training or, as Matt was mentioning, kind of getting to those resources of others in the industry. But once it's set up, Digico is incredibly easy to use. And I would actually argue probably easier than most consoles, because one of Digico's leading reasons, or I'm struggling to think of the word, but just one of our design, or just our design philosophies is that an engineer should be able to get anywhere quickly. And that's what a professional audio engineer needs. And if you think about it, what that professional audio engineer needs is the same thing a volunteer needs. For different reasons maybe, but it's a feature that anybody needs. So the flexibility of layout, that might be overwhelming to somebody who just mixes once a month and, asking them to lay out a console. But if you bring somebody in, get that set up the way you want to, something that's logical and makes sense, then anybody should be able to walk in. Years ago, I've stole this from Matt early on in there, but Digico has a feature called templates. And templates are just like a Microsoft Excel or, Word template where you save a session. The session cannot be edited, not easily anyway. And when you load it up, it loads up a session and forces you to save your own version of that session. And we always encourage churches to have, their standard Sunday morning where it's just loaded up, everything's routed and ready to go. You have a wedding set up. You maybe have a funeral, or like if the church does some sort of the pastor gets all the staff together and does some sort of staff meeting in the room, or something like that, right? Where it's a really simple thing. But, with those, you could teach anybody in the church to come in and load that session, have things set up. With things like automatic microphone mixers, you can basically make these things run themselves. So I don't buy into that at all. Now, yes, if you had a very complicated system, handing it over to a volunteer who's not a professional to set it up from scratch, I could see that being a valid criticism. But if you're buying a system like that, your integrator should be the one setting it up, should be the one wiring it, should be the one implementing everything and making sure it's good to go.
One other thing to think about is when somebody says that comment that you made, that this product or this product is difficult to operate, I always kind of go, well, where's this person coming from? Have they been on this other manufacturer's gear forever and have never tried anything else? Because all they did is they walked in every day, they threw the faders up, they put the dust cover back on, and they left. They never really dug into that piece of equipment. So they've actually got stuck in that one manufacturer's equipment, and they went and had a one-off or something, or they had to jump on this other desk, and we'll say it's a Digico SD9 or something, and they were trying to go live right away. I would say, hey, our system, and we've kind of proven this we do most of the big major festivals, and most of them have Digico at front of house and monitors on every single stage, plus all the touring bands that are coming in there. And with that said, a lot of the bands have not been on Digico. And the fact that they have 20 minutes to get up and running to do a full-on festival show in front of 8,000 people actually shows how really simple the system is. So what we do is just make certain your options are on the way you like it. A good integrator, when they do the install, they basically make certain everything's working. We do the training. What Ryan was talking about is you'll basically set the desk up, probably do your first sound check. We always recommend, hey, why don't you do a couple, 2, 3, 4 Sundays, and you keep saving that session. Once you're that spot, you kind of know you're in a really good spot. We like the way things are. We added some things like we forgot to send that broadcast patch, or the assistive listening wasn't patched. So now everything is a good, solid starting point. You can save that session, but somebody could load that master session on top. So what Ryan is talking about is I can take that master session, and we're going to call it Dave's master file, and you store it as this template file. So every day you can just walk in and, hey, this is the Sunday service, Dave's Sunday service. So when you load that up, it basically comes up with how you left it, but then it automatically forces you to save it as your new name. So I'm going to say it's Matt with today's date. So I'm really taking the starting point that you left me with, a good starting point every Sunday. I can maybe make a few little changes because like maybe we have an acoustic guitar player where we normally just have 2 electric guitars. So you can quickly make that additional change. You can still update it, so let's say I decided we wanted to actually turn these matrices on in the back of the room all the time. So you would store that, and you could store that and update your template folder. And you're going to have that Sunday service, that funeral, what Ryan was talking about with the pastor having a staff meeting. So it makes it really actually simple to operate.
Well, I came from the PM1D world, the Yamaha PM1D world.
Sure.
And for me, I was very used to that console and how it worked and how it operated. And so when I started looking at the Digico SD7, I had this initial fear, like, hey, this is what I'm comfortable with. This has so many options. And then I realized, hey, let me just talk through with Digico and integration and the training, what I need right in front of me. And what was so cool is with the Yamaha, no knock on Yamaha, great. They make great consoles, great company. But what I was able to do with Digico is I was able to put right in front of me what I needed. And I was able to put right in front of my volunteers what they needed. And so, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I still think that's a concept that Digico's kind of mastered. I mean, you don't have to go looking for it. It's not buried anywhere. You can take what you need and get it right in front of you, so that when you're mixing and when your volunteer shows up, they're very comfortable with what they're doing. You can set up safety buttons and different things like that. And so that's what brought me over to Digico. It's why I don't understand that, hey, they're not it doesn't work as well with volunteers. I'm like, to me, it works far better with volunteers because I can take that console and make it do what I want it to do, especially on the bigger brands. We were talking about the SD7 at that time. I think the S21 and some of those things I think are very simple to operate, in my opinion.
Yeah, and where we got that from is it's from years and years of the R&D team guys actually listening to the end users. And I think that's the one thing Digico is so good at, that if somebody says, hey, I wish I had a button or a knob that could do this and this, and we're like, just send in an email. They all go to our support or R&D guys. They put it on the list, and then they make the decision if it makes sense or not to do it. And I think that's what's made it over time, made things even easier and easier. But also, there's all the features that you as a front of house engineer, a monitor engineer, broadcast engineer, whatever position you're at, those features are in the system. And also, you could take 5 front of house guys. They all kind of work a little bit differently. So you kind of have the choice. And it's not that Digico can do so many things, it's so complex, it gets 6 ways to skin the cat. It's if I want the faders to come to me, I can have my AUX to fader tab, so I can just hit it on the touchscreen, and I could have my input channels all the way across the desk. I'm not having to have my AUX sends in the middle of the 12 faders just so I could hit the solo button throughout a show or a service. So there's just a lot of things that we've looked at over time to make things more efficient. The integration into the Clang system on the desk, the fact that we can actually tie in L-Acoustics, D&B, Meyer, Adamson will be on the next release. I can do OSC control. So maybe I've got a Meyer Galileo and I'd like to do an OSC control of that, or my iPad. We just try to make certain that not only can we mix what we need to on the Digico platform, but also add additional features. But also we also know we need to play with all the other kids in the block, because they might still have a Yamaha in the broadcast room or an Avid or some other system that they don't have the budget to replace that at this time. We want to make certain that our system can tie into theirs and vice versa, so we can feed audio back and forth and make it a seamless integration.
Hey, Ryan, so let me ask you this one. I'm a small church.
Yep.
I don't have a lot of money.
Yep.
Where do I go? Who do I call to get training?
I think there are a couple of great options. And we were all, if you're listening from the beginning, we were all talking about what it was like when we all got started. And a couple of things that I think are essential for training and really awesome is just things like YouTube, being able to watch podcasts like this, being able to watch shows like this, be able to learn from professionals, of just glean some little things about how to set it up. So like you said, we have a lot of information available to the actual user. Now, the user being able to apply that, being able to get into that. So a couple of things. One, Matt Larson said it earlier, completely agree. Virtual sound check, one of the best tools that is there, because now we let somebody come in during the week, even if there's nobody there to train them, they can hear it just like the band was on stage, if they have choir, etc., and they can really learn. So I think that's a massive tool. If I was going to invest into anything, that might be one of the first things I invested in.
Nothing makes you better than being able to make a mistake.
Correct.
And virtual sound check allows you to make the mistake and get better.
Correct.
And all you need is a USB cable to plug in the back of an S21, 31, 12, or any of the Quantums, and you have 48 tracks of multi-track recording right there. So it's not like you had to go ask for a couple $1,000s for some interface boxes. It's just a printer cable.
Mm-hmm. So, and you probably have those already somewhere around. And then probably plenty. The other thing I would say is, you mentioned, and we were talking about our buddy Jeff Sandstrom, what they do over at MXU. They've really taken this concept to just say, hey, just, get an MXU membership, and, the team can go through and learn about miking, learn about labeling mic cords. They can learn about, the whole process on there, which may be applicable to some. I think it would be a great place to take people through. The third option, and I'm going to credit Matt Larson with this one as well, because I think he is, and mentioned this years ago, so I don't want to steal it, but I think it's a genius move. It's every city, just about every city, I would argue, probably has a touring engineer in that city. You may not know them yet. You may not, maybe it's a regional production company or an audio production company of some kind, but chances are there's a company with an engineer in that city that you already live in. And there's kind of a really cool outreach. I was talking to my wife earlier about this. If you needed a new outlet in the church office, you guys are going to call the electrical company and, whoever that contractor is, and they're going to come out and work. And, you trust that person to do their job because they're a professional at that job. It's also the way the church gets to witness who they are to that person. So there's, that electrical contractor coming in may or may not be a Christian. They may or may not know who you are as a church. And so that interaction that they receive with your staff and with your people through that process is a great way, just on the daily, where that church can be a witness to other people who wouldn't normally come into that building. And if you apply this to something like audio, where you could bring in an engineer and maybe they have some time off during the week, or they're off of a tour and they have, a month off. Well, bring them in to mix on some Sundays. And you are going to gain knowledge from them because, as we said before, those people share what they know, the mistakes they've made, what they've learned, and all of that. You're going to get amazing personalized training for what you need, and you get to be a witness to that person. You're bringing them into a church, and some of them may never have been in a church before. That may not have been anybody's ever invited them before. So, as a church and a way to reach out, I think it's great. I think it's also a great training resource available, because having somebody in there with you, and if you buy a Digico system, right, we're going to include factory training, and one of our trainers, one of our contractors, they're going to come in, they're going to give you a great personalized training, but ongoing that year later after you have the system, you have a new volunteer staff. you want to get them up, you have local people. Tap into those local people, build relationships, build the network, get advice from professionals, and you can be a witness for Christ at the same time.
A little trick is too, they might not want to tour forever. They might be looking to get off the road. They might be looking for a job.
Yep.
Yeah, stable job, good people, routine, starts on time, ends on time. No one's throwing Cokes at you because they don't like the mix.
It's probably not Coke, but yes, correct.
Yeah. That's a Christian podcast. Christian podcast. Yeah.
Ooh.
Speaking of throwing things, my dog, I took him for a walk and somebody had a White Claw laying out on the street, and my dog picked it up in his mouth and was running down the sidewalk. Everybody's going to think this is what I drink all day long.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. Good dog.
Good dog.
Our pastor would always say, because when he had it, you had to be live to TV if you were doing it at that day and age, or you could do, tape delay and recorded. We were a church that did it live. And then we switched to tape delay at some point in time. But, when you have a certain popularity of your senior pastor, right, he would travel around and people would recognize who he is. And his comment was always, he would be like, go up, he's on a flight, people recognize him, say hello, and then he goes up to use the restroom. And the restroom is a mess, and he said he would always clean it up because inevitably, the person that came in after him was the one who recognized him on the plane, knew who he was, and just didn't want to be known as the guy who, left that bathroom of just an absolute mess on the plane. So,
what's your pastor known for? Cleaning up airplane bathrooms.
Oh, what a nice guy.
Oh, yeah, he's so nice. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't do that even if I was a pastor.
I'm not sure I would either.
Anyway, back on the subject. Matt, what's your favorite part of the Digico console?
Oh, boy. That's really a hard one.
You got to get it down to one. Get it down to one.
Okay. I've been here for 16 years, and I still love talking about every part of it. But I would say one of the most powerful one, it would be global set to default. And what that is you can open up the global set to default, go to say your input channels, and you could say, I want to mute all the inputs, or I want to put all my faders to 0, or I want to redo my sound check, but I like my EQ and my dynamics. So let me go to my aux sends and take all my aux sends off and turn them all off. So it's a real fast way to kind of clean some things up and not destroy your whole built up session that you had. So that's probably one of them. Next to optional, I snuck that other one in.
Yeah, you did. But Ryan, I'm not going to ask you what the most important part of the console is. I'm going to ask you, which is more important. I'm a church. Do I put my money in the console or do I put my money in the PA?
So, obviously.
Oh, I can't wait to hear the answer to that question. And we will. But we have to wait for part 2, which comes out very soon. Speaking of part 2, in that episode, we'll be talking about the brand new Foyer audio system. This engine allows you to run any VST3 plugin live. You heard me right. Any VST3 plugin can be run live on this new system. We'll talk about how it works on the next Tech Arts podcast. Plus, how do you troubleshoot your PA? What are capital budgets, and how do you convince your leadership to spend money on tech? And how do you pick the console that is right for you and your church? We'll answer all of those questions and more on part 2 of our discussion with the Digico boys, Matt and Ryan. Well, that wraps things up for today's episode. I can't wait to talk to you on the next Tech Arts podcast. Until then, I'm David Leuschner, signing off by wishing you a great day and praying God blesses every moment of your week. See you soon.
You have been listening to the Tech Arts Podcast, presented by Digital Great Commission Ministries. DGCM is a 501c3 nonprofit that was started to help churches with all things technical. Whether you need help building a team, finding the right gear, or just a better understanding of the church tech world, DGCM is here for you. Find out more about our free on-site visits, reports, and consulting by going to audiovideolighting.com. Digital Great Commission Ministries will help you run your church service like a pro. Find out more at audiovideolighting.com.
Join us this April 2nd and 3rd for the Worship Audio-Visual Experience Spring 2024 Conference and Expo, happening in conjunction with the Cavlo event. Wave and Cavlo are bringing more than 50 leading manufacturers and service providers to the Gaylord Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee, showcasing the latest technologies available for your church. Wave will be providing conference education to take your production and worship to the next level by learning lighting, sound, and video techniques, as well as leadership and advanced technologies like AI usage.
The conference is very affordable at just $119, includes all of the sessions, recordings, and special events as part of the Wave and Cavlo experience.
The Expo Pass is always free for everybody, so make sure to bring your entire team to see all that the exhibitors have to offer. Register at wave-event.co. That's wave-event.co today.
With Sermon Shot's church-specific AI, sermon highlights don't go unnoticed. Easily transform your sermons into 10-plus bite-sized clips, ready for social media. It doesn't stop there. Refine each clip by adding or removing video sections, give them your unique touch with colors, fonts, design edits, and create the goosebump moment with background music. Elevate your message and reach hearts locally and globally. Start today by going to sermonshots.com. From sold-out stadiums to intimate live performance venues, sound engineers agree on one thing for the best digital mixing consoles for live sound. The only name that matters is Digico. As the recognized worldwide standard for live audio mixing, Digico consoles are renowned for their industry-leading sound quality and ease of use. Whether your application is in a church, broadcast, theater, corporate, sports, or installed sound, Digico offers compact and affordable products. From the S21 all the way up to the pioneering power of the Quantum 852, Digico delivers the workflow, the feature set, and the absolute reliability that the world's biggest tours and programs have come to rely upon. If you're looking for a sound console, look to Digico for your answer. For more information on Digico, go to digico.biz. That's digico.biz. From front of house to center stage, for over 25 years, Earthworks microphones have sculpted the sounds of your favorite concerts, venues, and performances. Earthworks Audio is a sponsor of the Tech Arts Podcast. We are so happy to have them on board and excited to promote the new Earthworks SR117 vocal mic and capsules. To find out more about Earthworks Audio or to get your hands on this mic, go to earthworksaudio.com. That's earthworksaudio.com. Capturing emotion with sound. earthworksaudio.com.